Following program contains language and subject matter that you may consider unsuitable for children. Parental discretion is advised.
Greetings, Earthling. His Highness the Jackal.
The Jackal.
I'm going to pass the reins to Mr. Jackal, the new king of British.
I think Jackal's Latino. I'm not sure, but he'll give it to you, sir.
The Jackal.
All right, everybody, welcome to another adventure inside the Jackal's head, live right here on psn-radio.com, and it's going to be a very interesting evening as we get down and dirty into what's been going on both in the news, on the regular news, and then on what is going to be UFO related. Dun, dun, dun. Now it's, of course, May the 3rd, and 2020 is the year, the lost and forgotten year, for many reasons. I want to make sure that everybody is at peace with that, as it looks like things are not getting any better on the forefront of the coronavirus. And things are just looking doom and gloom, especially according to one politician who made a little mishap, saying that 600,000 Americans have lost their lives to the coronavirus. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I wanted to make sure I mention, before I go too into the news, because that's kind of a goofy one, I wanted to first bring on board my sidekick on the Jackal's head, the one and only, Brother Detox. Brandon, how you doing tonight, sir? Jackal. There you go. Good man. You're bearing down. What are you? Sequestered in a basement somewhere? Well, Italian food definitely would make you hop on many things. You know, the show is one of them, obviously, but Italian food will also make you hop down on. Well, let's see, the toilet. How's that going for you?
It was all right, man. It didn't stand a chance. I was good. No negative feedback.
Good man. Well, you're sounding good, man. No coronavirus for you, I guess, in your neck of the woods. How's everybody up there this week? Because we missed you last week. You weren't here with us. Yeah.
I've been working a few extra shifts at the other job while I wasn't here last week. But in the area, people are just, I don't know, man. People are acting like they're just inconvenienced by it. Everybody's at the beach now. I don't know how it is down in Miami, but like up here, like in Cocoa Beach, everybody's there.
Yeah, well, they opened the beaches. That's the problem. That's problem numero uno. And you know, people think that just because they open the beaches, you can go and walk around and still keep your social distance. They think no, that means everybody can just go and mingle. Everything's good and it's over. No, it's not quite over yet. We're still, and look, I'm all for opening the government back up, opening, the economy, getting everything moving, getting people working. We need that because if not, we become enslaved to what socialism is and to what communism is, and we don't want that. You know, we want to keep what we had going, which was the best economy in many, many, many decades. I mean, is that, something that is far-fetched? No, it's reality. And in a couple months, we've seen that going to the toilet. And I hope that, we could come back from that. But it takes, like they say, Brandon, takes a village to raise an idiot or something like that. Or a village to raise, children. It takes a strong leader to put the word down. And I love what, Trump has done, what a lot of the folks have done in warning us and telling us, keep your distance, do this, do that. But at the same time, they're also right when they say that we have to get back to basic, We have to restart the economy, because if not, it could be a total disaster, which we'll never recover from. And then even before the next elections, we're going to have a complete disaster in our hands when it comes to the economy. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to become Venezuela on a much larger scale. And with that said, we got to be very careful. But for those folks out there who are, thinking it's all over and you can just start going to the beach, keep your distance. We still have to be careful. Yes, we have to open things up, but be careful. Wear your masks. I don't have mine on now because I'm in the apartment, and you're over there and a little bit further away from Miami, Brandon, and of course our listeners are worldwide, so who knows exactly where they are at this moment. And our guest tonight on the second hour, Rich Hoffman, is also not in Miami, so we're all keeping our distances from each other. We're social distancing on this Skype call and on the show tonight, and that's something we're going to have to get used to. It's going to become like the norm, for a while. Now, I don't know how you feel about this, Brandon, but they're talking about the NFL continuing forward. I mean, are you serious? The NFL is going to have games? Who's going to go to these things? And have you been watching any of the pro wrestling or any of the stuff that decided to go, all out without fans? It's a disaster. It's boring as hell, because part of the excitement of sports is seeing the fan reaction, becoming one with what's going on. To take that away is foolish. It doesn't work, and you see that in a lot of things. And we're gonna get to a big possible story that comes with pro wrestling in a second here. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to get to news wise. But the most important thing is, we're facing a tough economical time. We have to get the economy rolling again. We have to do a lot of things to make sure that we don't lose the growth that we're experiencing altogether. And this year is kind of going to be a wash. It's May. It's almost the middle of the year, and things are not looking very good. But November is coming up soon. The election's coming up soon. I don't have to tell you who I'm voting for. I think that secret's already been told. Or, I don't have to have any selfies with the ballot box just to prove it that I voted for a certain orange man. I know, Brandon probably will vote for somebody else, but we can't really vote for a guy who might have actually sexually assaulted somebody in 1993. I mean, how is that something that, the media has overlooked for decades? And now the woman's come forward, and the people that were supporting the candidate Biden have run away. And you weren't here, Brandon, but last week when we had Paulio Roberts, I talked about this. And I showed a audio clip I shared with the audience, and it's going to be on the video version of the show. Where, the Me Too movement that was so out there when Kavanaugh was going through the hearings in Congress, when the accusations on him and President Trump were coming out left and right, and all this stuff was being debunked, but yet the media ran like it was actual fact. When all that stuff was happening, we had all these activists, Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell, who comes out all the time and has to stick her neck into the woods, and Alyssa Milano, who was one of the leaders of the Me Too movement, Rose McGowan, all these women. And look, I'm all for empowering women. I love women. I love my mother. I loved every single girl that I've ever been with. Well, maybe not every single one of them, but a lot of them, for sure. I can't exactly say I've loved them all. But at the same time, we got to be fair about these things. And Joe Biden is going through right now some very serious accusations. And, of course, he's not going to come out and admit that he did anything. That would be stupid. The media is asking him softball questions, and he's like, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. But, this has been on record since 1993. This woman has been trying to come forward, and, she is done what a lot of victims do. As the years pass, the story is not that it grows, is that she becomes more aware of what, happened and how she has to handle things. And if you're supposed to be in the Me Too movement and you're supposed to take every woman's word and you're supposed to say, okay, this happened for real, then, we have to go to, evidence and we have to believe the woman. Why is the media running away from this one story? And it's happened for a long time, and I'm really happy that now recently he's finally getting questioned about it. And of course he's denying it. I mean, that's, like I said, it's gonna happen. It's common sense. Nobody's gonna go and say, yeah, I did it. Damn right. I stuck my fingers in her and it smelled, well, like it's supposed to smell. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, Brandon, right? I hope.
Yeah, I definitely do. I've been reading and following the story on Biden, and just for the record, he doesn't have my vote, okay? I'm sure there's some hope in your voice. I was never a Biden fan, even going back to when he served under Obama. I just never been a fan of him. And I think the way it is right now, he needs to go ahead and drop out while he can and be done with it. I mean, I think he's the first step to, socialism, as you put it, and these still allegations. Mm-hmm. This is a big flop from the media. Why did they take 30 years practically to even bring this up? He's been in the political landscape longer than that.
Exactly. I mean, he's been 40-something, almost 50 years. And it's not that he ticked anybody off. It's this woman has been so much in the forefront that the right people have been, talking about this. And when I say the right people, it's ironic because it's been mostly the people on the right that are saying, wait a second, your candidate, creepy Uncle Joe, the guy who likes to smell, sniff, touch, grab, grope all these people, he was been accused since 1993, and the media has not looked into it. And so because of that, I think that's why now you're seeing a lot of the media outlets discussing this, because they're being called hypocrites. And that's exactly what the media is. They're full of hypocrites. If you call something like, say for example, Stormy Daniels, okay, who may not have, depending on who you believe, had an affair or slept with Trump 20 years ago. Guess what? They're both consenting adults, right?
Yeah.
Okay. She was over the legal age, way over. She was, I think, in her mid-30s at the time or something like that. I might be a couple years on or off, but she was definitely not a teenager. Legal. And why are people upset? He's a billionaire. If he wants to, sleep with a beautiful playmate, who am I to judge or hate? You know what I mean? And
she was an adult. She was well into, like you say, I think she was 33, 34 when it happened. I mean, to me, that's null and void all around. I mean, I don't even know why that came up, early on in his election and his term.
And the funny thing is, her lawyer is in prison because and for fraud. He just went to prison this past year. So, the media ran with it like it's a big deal. And by the way, he was, I don't think he was even married to Melania when this happened. This is, they weren't even dating at this point, I don't think. Or they might have been dating, but they definitely didn't have a son because he wasn't born yet. And I don't think it was anything serious. So, I mean, I don't care if Trump slept with a porn star 20 years ago. Who cares? He's not sticking it to an intern in the Oval Office with a cigar. He's not being accused of sexually assaulting Stormy Daniels. What was he accused of? Having sex with a porn star, and maybe he paid her some money so the media wouldn't talk about him banging porn stars. Am I missing something here? Why does anybody care?
I don't know why anybody cares. I sure as hell did. I was laughing the whole way through it. And I'm sure he paid her some money. Who cares?
Who cares?
She was performing a service. That's what we got.
And by the way, the oldest service known to men. I mean, let's be real. Let's be honest. And a lot of the Trump haters hate the fact that this man, has made a lot of money. That's really a lot of it's that, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. You see, he has billions, and he said it in 2015, 2016 when he was running, and the GOP, was going on, and I think it was during the one of the debates when he's talking about Jeb Bush and about how the audience is filled with the backers of the candidates on the stage, right? Now, what's going on with the candidates on the stage? Guess what? These same individuals do have their donors out there. They're the ones paying, for these tickets. And he says it, very much out in the open. He doesn't need their money. He has his own money, so he doesn't have to, do what they say. And that's one of the reasons I voted for him. Now, I got a couple callers who want to call in. I'm going to take every call that I get, so please bear with me here. Let's see. First person to join in, 502, you're on the show. Are you there? 502, you're live on Inside the Jackal's Head. Are you there? No, maybe not. Well, we tried. If you guys want to call in, by all means, please do so. The number is 786-245-8127. Again, that's 786-245-8127. You can look us up at Skype. Now, we don't filter calls. So if you do call in and it takes a couple seconds to pick up, just bear with us. We'll get to you. If you call in to talk to Rich, he's not on yet. He's going to be on at the end of the hour. For all of you who are eager to talk to him, he'll be on with us for a full hour, uninterrupted. We're going to talk ufology with Rich Hoffman because, getting off this whole narrative when it comes to politics and going into a little bit of ufology, there's been a big movement within that also. And I know that you've seen some of the stuff that the Pentagon has put out, Brendan. Have you been paying attention to that at all?
No, I've only thought a little bit of it, but not that much.
Well, they've recently put out 3 videos of confirmed UFOs, right? And when I say confirmed, I'm talking about these are actual crafts the Pentagon has been picking up. And guess what? These are very fast-moving objects, and they have no idea on how this is even possible. Have you seen the videos that I'm talking about?
No. I know you said that there were 3 videos. I haven't seen them yet, but if you can send me to that would be great. What I was about to say was I've always been into the UFO thing, but I'm starting to wonder now, is the government in possession of any of these craft, or are they using it for themselves?
That's a great question, and we don't know the answer to that, unfortunately. President Trump, going back to him a few months ago, was asked directly, does he know anything about, the alien conspiracy? And he said no, but he believes what he's been told, and he does admitted, first sitting president who openly admits that he was briefed on the UFO subject, and the Pentagon and his people have pretty damning evidence that says something's happening. And again, first sitting president to say that. And now, of course, with what's going on with the lockdown, coronavirus, and this weird timing, they released these 3 videos. In fact, if anybody wants to see the videos, they're posted on my website, angelespino.com. You can go over there and take a look at them. Feel free to check them out and leave comments on there, angelespino.com or thejackal.com. Either one will get you right to the same place. Check them out and look for yourself. You know, these things are definitely flying at a rate that with conventional aircrafts, technology that we know about, right, we can't match these speeds. Okay, so if with the stuff that we know about, we can't do what this is being done on video, what does that tell you this is? Well, one of 2 things. Either it's one of ours, or it's one of theirs. And theirs could be a number of things. Doesn't necessarily have to be extraterrestrial. It could be a foreign government with some exotic technology, right? Could be Russia, for all we know. Could be Germany. It could be a number of these different places with technology so far advanced that is mind-blowing. So we got to keep that in mind, and it's perfectly reasonable to think that that might be the case. It might be just something that they're testing out, flying over our waters, and it could be something that is ours, just test flying it, and maybe even the government doesn't even know, because and I've talked about this countless times, where there's the government, which compartmentalizes everything. And then there's, of course, the people behind the scenes that run the show. And behind, the institutions like NASA, there are other groups that have for years worked on black budget projects. Werner von Braun, who is really the creator of NASA, for example, when he retired from NASA, he went into these black budget projects with a lot of money, by the way, and a lot of money from the government. And in fact, there's been over the years trillions and trillions of dollars that have gone missing from the budget. Where do you think this money is going?
Hey, it could be going to extraterrestrial research. It could be funding my people on a different planet.
You never know. Maybe the U.S. dollar goes far on Mars. You don't know. Maybe on somewhere in Alpha Centauri they're trading gold bullions and dollars and euros. Maybe the dollar is the currency of the galaxy. Who knows? I'll tell you this much though: we don't have a lot of paper dollar in circulation to pay off China, let alone to fund any extraterrestrial planets and their governments or whatever it's going on over there. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean they're alien beings that are being caught on video. Could very well be one of ours. But the fact that we now have a space force, okay, and these videos are coming to light when they are, and Trump opening up about this thing. And let's not forget the lineage. I don't know if you're aware of this, Brandon, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up here. And when World War II ended in the 40s, right? You know about the Great Second War.
Yes.
Now you also know about the great Tesla, Nikola Tesla. And that he died, the war ended around the same time period. We also had a couple years later something called the Roswell crash. And for years and years and years now, I've been saying on this show and on Skywatchers Radio and all the other shows that I've done, that to me it's all related. The war ends with Germany, and Nazi Germany at that. Tesla passes away, Roswell happens. Why is all this important? Because as a lot of people have talked about and has it become, kind of a theory, I guess you could say, or legend at this point, or mythology, that Hitler was not only into the occult, but they're working on UFO technology. Now, if we beat Hitler, right, supposedly, and we inherit all their scientists, including Werner von Braun, who was, again, the head of NASA, right, and he was a Nazi scientist, and we put him as the head of NASA, the space program, right? Who's not to say that this is all connected to the space program, the secret space program that the Nazis were working on, right? Now give it 60, 70, 80, 90 years, and advancements are going to be made, whether they're, technologies that, were UFO related at one point and then bred into what Tesla was working on, or whatever the case might have been. Technology advances. And in that matter of time, who knows what we have, and who knows what the government's secret government and the people that run this type of thing, what they have cooking up. What they're working on behind the scenes. We don't know. We're sheeple. We're blind to the fact of what really is happening. And it's not our fault. It's just the way it is. This is the way society has always been. We're at a need-to-know basis. Unfortunately, the ones that are within the government's government, the ones that started the secrecy, feel like they're the oligarchs who run that show, and they're the ones who are going to be the keepers of the secret. Now, of course, good friends like Stephen Bassett for years have been wanting to open up disclosure and have the government come clean with what they've got hidden. But guess what? Space Force, Trump as the president currently, the whole Nikola Tesla, World War II, Roswell incident. Guess how all this ties in, Brandon? Take a wild guess. I'm going to let you guess on this one as I cough. Go ahead, guess.
Alien contact. I think it's already happened.
That's not a good enough guess, but at least you're trying. No. What I'm getting at, how this whole thing ties in, it's because of one name. John Trump. Now, do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
Okay. He is Donald Trump's uncle. And how is he relevant at all to any of this? Guess who was the first person, or, well, maybe not the very first, but one of the first people that saw the documents allegedly left behind by Nikola Tesla when they discovered him dead, and they took and raided his, apartment or where he was living, and they took all the documents away. Guess who was one of the first people there?
Mr. Trump himself.
John Trump, who the president, Donald Trump, has said many times was a very smart individual, much smarter than I am. And he was into all these things, and he oversaw some documents which a lot of people think were not only Tesla's documents that deal with UFOs and possible exotic aircrafts that he was working on, but also free energy and a lot of things that he was working on, which include energy that is wireless. Now, of course, we have the ability to power cell phones, smartphones, tablets, wirelessly. Right? This is new technology that we're now unveiling. Tesla was working on this years ago. Okay? So it's new to us now because they've perfected the technology, but that was in the mind of Tesla decades and decades ago. And John Trump was one of the first individuals who saw the paperwork, who raided his apartment, who took the material. Isn't that interesting? And now we have his nephew as the president during the time that the Space Force is created. And we have the Pentagon releasing this footage. After decades of, the hard work put in by Steve Bassett and many others trying to get disclosure to happen, including our guest tonight, Rich Hoffman, who's been with MUFON for years, and they've put in a lot of hard work. And men, they've had the boots on the ground for years, going to places and talking to people and getting the stories of these people that are first. And a lot of them are individuals who have been abducted, who have had first-hand experiences, people within the Roswell community. Look, one of my heroes who passed away not long ago, Stanton Friedman, was able to bring out the Roswell story when it was buried. And he talked about it with Jesse Marcel, Sr. And then, of course, Jesse Marcel Jr. became very famous for talking about what he experienced also as a kid. And, he recently, not long ago, passed as well. And now his son is talking about, for the last 5-6 years, about what his father and his grandfather were talking about. And Jesse Marcel III, he's a very bright individual. We had him on Skywatchers a couple times. Very, very, decent man. And Jesse Marcel Jr. was a decent man also. These are guys that don't bullshit. And they're coming forward with real information about what they saw. And I tell you what, it's insulting to think that Jesse Marcel Sr., who was a decorated officer and knew what the difference would be between a weather balloon and an exotic spacecraft. Okay? It's insulting to his intelligence and to the training that he received, to think that he would make that kind of a mistake and say, well, yeah, weather balloon, I was confused. It looked like a spaceship. That's moronic, but that's been the government's agenda for years, to confuse, keep us out of the loop, because that's how you sell a lie. It's like the same thing Nancy Pelosi talked about with the whole smear campaign. That's what they do. They lie. They cover up the lie with more lies and more lies, and then eventually the lie becomes the truth, right? And you start believing that everybody's crazy. There's no truth to any of this stuff. But now it's ironic that in 2020, where everything else is going on, the Pentagon is coming out saying, well, not so fast. There might be something to this UFO stuff. Yeah, you might not all be that crazy, after all. And I personally find that to be just hilarious. Hilarious. But I do have a couple, like I said, things that I wanted to get to in the news. I was hoping that we can get Kaiser on tonight, but I don't think he's available. I think he's out on a mission, doing something exotic. So we might have Kaiser's Corner again this week, or Kaiser's Castle. But, we'll have him on, surely enough, pretty soon. And I'm sure he has a lot to talk about. But there's a couple things I wanted to get to, which I have a couple audio clips and I wanted to play them. One thing I didn't want to talk about is going back to Joe Biden here. Not only was he sexually accused of sexually assaulting Tara Reid in the 90s, guess what? A 14-year-old. Now, this is from a lady called Eva Murray. Now, I'm sure you haven't heard about this one, Brandon. Eva Murray. She's a little bit older now. She's, not a young kid anymore. But in 2008, she was 14. And she claims Biden sexually harassed her at 14 on these new allegations where as I call him, the sniffler. You've heard of the sniffler. Well, he's the sniffler. Creepy Joe... and his inappropriate behavior towards another woman is out and about again this time. However, it surfaced a little darker accusation than before, where now it's this 14-year-old coming out with saying that he inappropriately made comments about her. And while this doesn't shock me, the young lady, Eva Murray, told Law and Crime that Biden complimented her on her breast size. And this happened at a state gridiron. Sorry, man, that was badly written. The first state gridiron dinner and show back in 2008. Now, 2008, he was the vice president, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is a long-running roast of in party for politicians. You know, Trump has appeared in these things. You know, Biden, Obama, Bush. Now, it says here that journalists and prominent business figures held each year in the Delaware, that's where they have these things. Murray says that she remembers the event occurring sometime around May of that year. What? We're in May now, right? It's ironically enough. Good timing. She says one friend and her sister said that Murray told her the details of the alleged incident more or less immediately after it happened, and 4 other friends of Murray said that they were told about the incident with the same details between 2 and 3 years after it originally occurred. Law and Crime interviewed Eva Murray and her sister and those friends over the course of multiple days, and Murray is the niece of former Republican Senate candidate Christy O'Donnell, and said she occasionally received school credit for attending such political events. That's why she would go. O'Donnell was running as a long-shot campaign against Biden at the time that this sexual assault harassment incident occurred. Now think about that. Okay, and when was it that he was named vice president for Obama? When did they win that election and took over?
2008, if I recall.
Right. So, you know, Creepy Joe, who became the vice president, was certainly empowered to hush these people, right? But this young lady at 14 came forward, told friends, family, and they all came forward, and nothing happened because vice president, who's going to take her word over his? But now, see, the internet doesn't forget, right? Because we've had a lot of evidence that Joe is a creepy old man, and that's why I call him the Sniffler, because he does like to sniffle around, touch people, you know, sniff hair. There's a lot of evidence on YouTube, which is sponsored and paid for by the media, by Google, by Facebook, all these, you know, social media. They're all leftists, but the stuff is there. If you just Google it up, you'll see for yourself. He's done this over the years. And he said not too long ago that, well, you know, maybe it's because I was raised differently. Well, I'm sorry. I was raised not to tell a 14-year-old that she has nice breasts when I'm in my 50s or 60s or however old he was. That's just called being a pedophile. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't shock me that, you know, the Epstein books came out and all the names were there. Biden was there. Clinton was there. Obama was there. The same people that, you know, are supposed to be the moral authority now that claim that Trump is a criminal because he might have banged a girl who was a porn star 20 years ago because he was caught on a hot mic with a guy named Bush talking about women's bush, ironically enough, right? Bad orange man, evil pervert. But Joe Biden, no, we're not going to touch that. Ironic choice of words, I know. Touch that when it comes to Joe Biden. But apparently, you know, his love of women are also now on full display as he likes him underage too, folks. Again, if you want to read the entire story and my thoughts on the entire thing, go to the website, angelespino.com. Take a look at it. Very, very interesting stuff at the least. It'll open some eyes, which is all that I'm for. Look, I'm not trying to sway your vote one way or the other. You're going to vote for whoever you want to vote for. It's your American right to vote for who you want to vote for. That's the only thing I'm fighting for, and that's what, you know, the president's fighting for. That's what we're all fighting for, to keep those rights. To not have people like Nancy Pelosi and the you know, people on, let's face it, the socialists that are trying to take over, and the communists that have been trying to take over for years, make sure they're not the ones that tell you who to vote for. That they're not the ones who just put the people they want in power. You remember, they got upset because Trump won an election fair and square. So what have they been wanting to do for all this time? Remove him. Right? Since the day he was elected, you had these same individuals, the Pelosi, Schumers, Schiffs, all these Congress people coming out and saying they're going to impeach 45. Impeach Trump if he wins. Nancy Pelosi in 2015, when Trump announced he was going to run, said, he'll never be president. Yeah, we'll make sure he's never president. What? Are you serious? When the man first gets, elected, you're really talking about impeaching him? For what? He hasn't done anything. Don't you gotta commit a certain crime before they talk about impeachment? I mean, let's be realistic here. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but the last time I checked, that's kind of how this works. You commit the crime, and then you do the time. It's not the other way around, folks. That's not how this works. But again, if you're dealing with imbeciles and people who have, their own agenda, which doesn't include the betterment of you and me and everybody on this country, all the citizens who have been here legally, if it doesn't involve them, they don't want to hear it. They'll sweep it under the rug. And if this is the guy you want leading your country, a guy who mistakes 60,000 deaths during an outbreak with 600,000, then you have a lot more issues to work through than you initially thought. In fact, this is one of the audio clips I'm going to play. I want you guys to listen to this. This is incredible. This is Joe Biden, again, stumbling over his words. Take a listen.
Over 600,000 dead. Many of them are people who are those workers, those nurses, doctors, some of them, because they have put themselves in a position to save other people's lives, protect the rest of society. And we talk about that number like 600 plus thousand people. There's every one of them left.
60,000. Yeah, 60,000.
660. I missed 60,000. No one's going to do it, as you're now seeing.
Mr. Vice President, will you, as we close this interview, love for you to say a word or two about public healthcare work, about healthcare workers, about nurses, about doctors. We heard the tragic story of a woman who was in charge of the ER at a New York hospital, taking her life because she was so despondent. What are you going to do? What will your administration do to support healthcare workers, not just on the job, but also off the job, perhaps with many of the mental health care challenges that they are going to be facing for years to come because what they have seen already this year?
They are going to face it. A lot of people are going to face it. Look, Joe, over 600,000 dead. Many of them are people who are those workers, those nurses, doctors, some of them, because they have put themselves in a position to save other people's lives, protect the rest of society. And we talk about that number like 600 plus thousand people. There's every one of them left.
60,000. Yeah, 60,000.
660. I missed 60,000, over 60,000 deaths. And we talk about them like they are a number. Every one of them left behind a family. Every one of them left behind friends, left behind. This is one at a time. They have to be recognized for what they have done, and I hope it opens up the eyes of the American people, which I think it has, to realize there's so many people every day out there breaking their necks, from people who are making $7 an hour to significant medical professionals, and they're all risking their lives for us. I think we have a chance to fundamentally change the societal structure and how the inequities that exist in our system once we get through this, because people now realize these are the people making a difference. First and foremost, recognize their sacrifice. They're not asking for that, but they have to know, and it's part of what I've learned, you have to know that what is needed is you have to be recognized for people knowing that you are doing something good and decent and honorable, and you're doing it for other people. It's about some empathy. It's about letting them know. But beyond that, that's why I propose in the healthcare proposal I put forward that we significantly increase funding for mental health. We make sure that it's the same level as physical health. There's no difference whether you have something wrong in terms of your emotional state and your brain, and any more than it is if you broke your arm. And we have to lift that whole notion that somehow...
Now, isn't that ironic coming from creepy Joe Biden talking about mental issues, considering that the man suffers from dementia and can't even understand the difference between 60,000 and 600,000, where he mistakes his wife for his sister at a rally, where he doesn't know what state he's in half of the time. And again, listen, the president has had, talking points up the wazoo, talking about how, each death is a lot, and one death is too many. 60,000 is a lot of people dead. And, to make that mistake is idiotic. But again, we're talking about Joe Biden here. But the president has, had briefings, and he's had, these coronavirus task force, talks every day almost since this outbreak, and lasting for an hour or two on live feed, where everybody can, look and see and hear what he's saying. So it's not just like I'm making this stuff up. You can see it for yourself. It's all over the YouTube and the internet, where the president is very humble, talking about each individual's states and their numbers, and then how the virus is taking lives. And to think that the only people that are losing their lives are people that are working in hospitals, that's very inaccurate. I mean, the numbers of doctors and the nurses who have lost their lives are small compared to the rest of the 60,000 that have lost their lives. But guess what? We lose 30 to 40,000 people to the flu every year. Okay? This is a bad outbreak, right? But if it wasn't for President stopping the flights in and out of China in January, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been 150,000 right now. It could have been 200,000. Hell, it could have been 1 million. Why? And people want to say, why do we have the most deaths? Well, you idiot, we're also in a larger country than Italy. Than, a lot of these European countries. Than Spain. That's why we have more deaths. Because it's a larger country. Of course you're going to have more people die in a larger country. It's logical. When there's an outbreak, the bigger country gets the biggest numbers. Right? And you can't compare our economy and our country to those countries and say, well, it's Trump's fault. Well, how about blaming the fingers at somebody like Pelosi, who was on record in Chinatown telling people a month after the flights closed, don't worry about it, it's all a lie, it's a conspiracy. Come to Chinatown, have fun. The president's a racist and a xenophobe. That's why he closed the flights. That, folks, is disgusting behavior, and that is who we have to deal with on a very crazy moment in time. One Nancy Pelosi, and for those of you who listened, makes you wonder why you would listen to that idiot. But not only that, follow the trend. What are the states that have been mostly affected with the deaths of the virus? California, New York. Heavy Democratic ran states. A lot of the 60,000 deaths have been Democrats. A lot of them. Because they listened to the wrong people. And Nancy Pelosi has blood on her hands. When you tell people to come down and party like it's 1999 in Chinatown, and the virus comes out of China, and the president is stopping flights from and into China, and you're doing that on TV and calling him a racist, and people in your area are dying because of this virus, you have blood on your hands, Nancy Pelosi. And finally, with us is the one and only, the gentleman who makes bow ties look much cooler than ever I could. That's right, our good friends who love those bow ties right here are going to be very jealous and envious of this gentleman, Mr. Rich Hoffman. Welcome to the show, sir. And you're looking tremendously healthy, which is a great thing. And the bow tie looks phenomenal. And I see the little UFOs on there. I love that bow tie.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I should have worn my mask with it. I would have looked like an alien, I guess, or something like that. But anyway.
You know, it's funny because we met at MUFON, and you know we're known as the alien guys. So you were in the mask with the bow tie during the coronavirus, and they're talking about aliens and UFOs in the news. Yeah. You might spook people if you go out in public like that. I'm just saying, they might be like, he's one of them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No doubt about it.
So, you know, we haven't spoken in a long time. How you been? How's everything in your world?
Great. A lot of good, exciting stuff going on since we've been together. Let's see. I mean, at that time, we didn't even have the organization in place, but I'm with SCU, which is a scientific coalition of UAP studies. Mm-hmm. We started that organization up, and we've got now 80 members of it. They're all, I mean, you got like about probably 24% of them are PhDs. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So we've got a good group going. We've done a lot already. We put a 277-page report on the USS Nimitz case. We interviewed about 18 people from the ship and the planes and various other things. So that's something that's pretty exciting. We've had our first conference. That was last March here in Huntsville, and in Alabama. And then, unfortunately, the one we had this year, which was going to be in June, we had to cancel. But a lot of great stuff going on. My gosh, I'm just excited that we've got all that stuff going on and much more. We're going to probably hold the next conference again. One other thing. We're starting to do our own radio shows as well, and we're going to have the presenters that we're going to be at the conference each do a 30-minute presentation, and so
cool.
So we'll be able to have that. I think the first one is in May 6th, but anyway, I can share that information with you. That you can find it on our website. It's explorescu.org.
Explorescu.org.
Yeah, so that's where you can go, and it'll be announced there as well in terms of that show. But
that's a couple of days from now too. On May. Yeah.
Exactly, it's coming up. So I'm pretty excited about the fact that we're having our own radio show as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a great event. Now, what exactly are you guys going to cover? You're going to cover the videos of the Pentagon that moved on, or what are you going to talk about here? Because there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the world of ufology.
Yeah, well, no kidding. So we're going to be having again the presenters do 30 minutes on their presentation topics.
Okay.
That's going to include everything from dark matter and dark energy in relationship to UFOs, which is kind of exciting. As well as the interstellar travel kind of concept, the Fermi paradox. We're going to be getting into the Ubatuba material that was at the crash site. And so we're going to talk about that. And there's a whole host of others that are presenting. And then at one point, we'll do a panel. And so it'll be on a variety of topics. But no, we pretty much, you mentioned the videos that are released, or re-released, I should say, because as you very well know, they were released in 2017 and 2018, and now the Pentagon is wanting to own up to it and actually say that they are released where they were saying that they weren't officially released.
Right.
And that's the government and DOD is so, it's going to have to check every box, right? And if you don't check a box on doing your declassification, then they're going to say that. And so obviously there was a box not checked, and it didn't go through a certain kind of a review or whatever like that. And so they've decided to now officially release them. But here's the other exciting thing, that when the videos were initially first declassified, if you look at the documents, the DD 1910, I think, they were, Lou and his team, Lou Elizondo and his team had decided to call them basically things like, drones and basically other kinds of natural objects, so that he could help get it through and get it the clearance through without any kind of, I'm releasing UFOs.
Right.
But the interesting thing about it is that they chose to now say that these are unidentified objects. And so that's one step further that they made in terms of the Pentagon.
Well, now they have a new term, Rich. It's no longer UFO. Now it's UAP.
Yeah, it's
unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Yeah, and just to also talk about that, for most people, they still want to call them UFOs and stuff. But there's also, when we did the Aguadilla study, and when I saw you at the 2016 conference that we had in Florida, I had presented about the UAP that was an Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. And we didn't use the word aerial phenomena. We used, at that time, UAP stood for anomalous phenomena, because if you think about it, and actually now what we've done in our name, we've gone with aerospace phenomena, unidentified aerospace phenomena, because these things are in space, they're in the air, and they're underwater.
Correct.
And that represents all three of those things.
Which is something the Pentagon footage was over water.
Yes.
A lot, yeah. And people are not talking about that. They might have been something that came directly from the ocean, and that's when they were caught on surveillance.
Yeah, all three of those videos are over water. They're definitely those Navy exercises. And that's where, like on the East Coast in 2015, that's where they were seeing hundreds of these things over a period of time. And they were performing hypersonic speeds and making incredible stops and making a variety of turns and stuff. And so it's pretty exciting that you've got, confirmation on both the East Coast and the West Coast that you've got these objects that are performing at incredible hypersonic speeds, if you would. And what are they? And we just don't know.
And the question here, it's not just what are they? Are they one of ours or one of theirs? And if it's not one of ours and it's one of theirs, then it's a broader question, because it doesn't have to be extraterrestrial exactly. It could be a foreign government. It could be any number of things that that are flying in the skies that that we've been tracking. But the extraterrestrial question is one that is, well, could that be it? Now, President Trump was briefed on the subject. He is the only sitting president to come forward and said, yeah, I was briefed on it, and I believe what my people are telling me, even though I'm not exactly 100% a believer. He's skeptical, and he mentioned that. But he did say that he believes what the reports are coming in from, within the intelligence community about this. Just him saying that, it's kind of a road to disclosure. Wouldn't you say that?
Oh, completely. I think that the whole thing here is disclosure. Let me put it to you this way. We say that they're saying that the UAP exists, okay?
Right.
If you take a look at Project Blue Book when it started, they told you that they had at that time that there were 701 cases that they looked at that they could not explain, right? So in essence, they would be telling you even at that time the fact that there's unknowns, that they exist, and that we don't know what they are. And so all along we've been told that UFO exists, but this one is pretty pronounced where you've got the statement that was an official release saying the very same thing. And this is out of the DOD. Now that's more than just the Air Force, and it's more than just the Navy. The Navy was pretty quick about saying that these things were unidentified aerial phenomena as well. But now the Pentagon has come out with that. So and now the president is pretty interested. So that's pretty exciting stuff altogether. A lot of people consider the big D, the disclosure, being the fact that we're saying that extraterrestrial life forms are coming here. And while, just like you just shared, there's still, we're not sure if, let's say, what happens if a UFO, I'm going to go with the UFO term for a second. If the UFO crashed over in China and the Chinese got the technology and have been able to figure it out and are now flying it across in skies, we would look at that and say, well, we don't know where it's coming from. And so you don't want to jump to being the fact that it's extraterrestrial, because it could be from, hypothetically, the Chinese or the Russians or some other government, right? And so until you get that nailed down, you're left with the fact that these things are performing incredible speeds that could have been derived by someone. Even if we were to have a crashed one, we would be able to take it, re-engineer it, figure it out, or even try to fly it, or learn how to fly it. And if you look at the crashes like Roswell and all the other kinds of crashes around the planet that have gone on, like I mentioned, the Ubatuba, that was in Mexico. Well, I mean, if there are a lot of these crashes happening, maybe somebody has figured out some capability of making them fly. But still, even so, you got to keep the unexplained part of that being that it's likely not Earth here, because here are the materials on these things. When they're flying at these kind of speeds, like when you take a look at the speed of the drop of the objects out in the Nimitz case, they were going, like something like 40,000 miles an hour, and I think the G's were incredibly high. And so you would have a situation where the G forces would probably have ripped the F-18 to shreds. I mean, it couldn't have dropped at that kind of speed. And so when you have that kind of thing going on, you're talking about materials science that's beyond. And so it's kind of interesting because it's like there's a very strong, it's more likely that these things are from off planet than they are, if you would, than on planet.
That's my assessment also. But remember, like I said earlier in the show, we have to remember the timelines of how NASA got started when the Second World War ended. Tesla, what he was working on. If there's any truth to any of that stuff, the fact that John Trump, the uncle of the current president, was one of the people that investigated the papers left behind by Tesla and oversaw the recovery of a lot of the materials, including exotic aircrafts, which are familiar to UFOs or look like UFOs, wireless energy, all kinds of things that he was going on in his mind that he was trying to work on. And you put that together with the Roswell crash, Nazi Germany being taken out all in the same decade. That leads me to believe that is all interconnected. And then you had, the fact that we have Werner von Braun brought in to head NASA. You had, his projects that eventually, when he retired from NASA, he went supposedly underground, started the underground black budget projects, which had maybe funded who knows how many trillions from the government into these projects to oversee some of the technologies, which have been spoken about not only on this show but on many shows, including Art Bell's and all kinds of things. Maybe that's what we've been seeing in the skies, and our own people, the Pentagon, might not be aware of everything that's going on because these things are so heavily compartmentalized, where maybe it's like everything in the government. Only you have so much time in the government, so everybody's on a need-to-know basis. And if this stuff is so secret, It could very well be one of ours, so we're test flying from somewhere. It could be, like I said, one of theirs. China could be the thing. It could be theirs. But I do find it funny that at the same time we have a president who started the space thing with the Space Force this recently, and his uncle was involved with the whole Tesla documents. It's not ironic, and he's the sitting president now. I mean, there's a lot of ironies here to iron out, which leads me to believe again that we're on the path to disclosure. I truly believe it now. I didn't, when I was first talking to, folks like yourself, Steve Bassett, and all the folks that have been working on this for 30 plus years, 40 years, my God. One of the things that always, got back to me was like, well, we've been talking about this since before I was born, and now, 30, 40 years later, we're still talking about it. It's never going to happen. But now it's like we're coming in at a point where it's like almost a domino effect, or everything's happening at once, and it's all being rushed, I think, towards almost the end of this year. And I think this might be the year, Rich.
Think so?
I
Well,
do
that
believe
would
I
be
think,
nice. I just celebrated in April my 56th year in
There you
the
go.
phenomenon. And I tell you, every year you keep looking for something that's going to break the dam and bring it all out. And I'm hopeful at this point that we might be able to see that. I'm not sure I know what it's going to look like or what it would be, because ultimately, as you very well know, a lot of people don't even believe what the government says in the first place. And so, what does it take to be able to tell you that these things are definitely real, and would anybody believe it, and how would they present that? And when you take a look at the Pentagon in terms of the way it operates, and of course I work with the DoD, I'm working with the Army Materiel Command, and I have for the last 25 years. And you talk about all those like secrets and things like that. Well, yeah, I mean they're there, and they're there for reasons. Just like those 38 papers that were released by the ATIP or the OSAP program, depending upon which one I want to talk about, at the Pentagon. Those things were put in through DIA because they're technology-based kind of papers. And we don't share our technology secrets with every other foreign government on the planet. And so there's reasons why you classify things and you put it at a level to the point where you can't get it reachable by our foreign elements. And so I know that you know what I'm talking about, and there's reasons for not, being fully open about what you have and what you've got and what you're doing, because you don't want to let everybody else know out there, and they're always listening.
Yeah, you don't want the cat out of the bag, so to speak, because not only that, you don't want the enemies who really want to harm society to do the evil that they can. Because if some of this technology is true, I mean, forget just the free energy part. We're talking about exotic aircrafts. They can travel at speeds that are mind-boggling. They could drop a bomb here in a matter of seconds, and we'll never even know about it with some of this technology if we really don't know about it. So, yeah, if we're a government that gets wind of this technology before anybody else, it is a common sense thing, a logical thing to keep this to thyself and not let the enemy know about these things. So this is one reason, Rich, why I've never, blamed the government for some of the secrets, because I have that understanding. Well, it might be the betterment of the government itself, because as individuals, we're here for a very limited time, but the government's here for centuries, right? And we have to protect the world. We're the biggest superpower. And we're talking about, technologies that might come from somewhere else with unlimited resources. You don't know what they might have. Well, that's very, very very highly classifiable stuff that we need to first study, examine, dissect, make sure we understand it perfectly enough to put some of this stuff out, which I believe that's why we've had advancement in computers, fiber optics, all kinds of different things that when you look at where we were just 100 years ago when the Wright brothers were trying to take flight to where we are today, you're like, my God, we've advanced nearly, 1,000 years and 100 years compared to where we were.
It's remarkable. I used to work at the when I was living in Dayton, Ohio. I used to work at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the museum there, which is now the Air Force National Museum. And it was always a thrill of mine to be able to see all the aircraft that took you from the Wright brothers all the way up, and you'd be sitting there with utter amazement of watching how that technology had completely changed. And then you take a look at, the 117 and the stealth aircraft that they've got now, and you're going like, wow, we have just come so incredibly far. It's phenomenal. But here's to me the exciting thing is that back in the 50s when we were doing those advances and stuff like that, these objects that are performing like the Tic Tac kind of object you had on the West Coast, they've always been performing like that. They can stop on a dime. They can reverse their direction. They can go from standstill to within seconds that they can achieve, like 5,000 or whatever miles per hour. And that's been recorded. And so it's really remarkable to see how that while we've gradually changed, these objects that don't need necessarily be a certain shape and have no means of propulsion that's visible on them can do these incredible speeds and have for the full, at least I've been with this for 5 decades, 5.5, easily. And they perform, and so they've not really changed much. And so what does that mean? Does that mean that they basically are here? And, to me, going back to what we've talked about before, the ocean's pretty big and it's pretty empty and it's not really known much. And the fact that these things are over water and then pop over land period of time, but it's pretty much an indicator to me that they might be having a base in the water.
Oh, yeah, and it's a perfect place to hide. I mean, we know more about space than we know about the oceans. Ironically enough, It's funny, but it's true. I mean, I was having a conversation with my father recently, and I told him, and this blew his mind. And he's an older gentleman. He's in his 70s, and you would figure that somebody at this point would have told him this. But I had a conversation, and I pulled out his smartphone. And I said, "You realize you have more technology in your hands when you're talking on Facebook chat with your girlfriend than they had when they went to the moon."
Exactly.
And he said, how's that possible? And I'm like, let me show you.
No, it's true. It's very true. I mean, it's remarkable for me to be in a position. I've been working with computers now in the DoD and before the DoD positions that I had. And even there, that whole technology has changed the way we do everything. And you can see how we've gone from the initial floppy disks to now, storage, and now we're talking about quantum computing and that type of stuff. So it's really remarkable to see even that technology and how it's progressed.
Speaking of quantum computing, what is your thoughts on that and the 5G phenomenon that's going on? Because this is all leading towards quantum technology. 5G is going to make quantum computing a whole lot easier to assess in the near future. What are your thoughts on that? Because a lot of folks are very scared when it comes to the 5G technologies.
Yeah, well, I think it's like everything else that there's a certain amount of risk for radio waves. I mean, that especially the high frequency radio waves and stuff like that a lot of people are very, very sensitive to. And so there's a right to be concerned. But at the same time, I'm very excited about it. I think that, we'll definitely see. It's not fully out yet. I mean, it's still being launched around, and there are significant we're looking at it in the Army, as a matter of fact, by the way, and looking at exploring 5G and how we're going to use it. I think I think ultimately the technology is very, very exciting. It's not necessarily quantum computing. That's what was throwing me. Quantum computing is a whole other technology. We're talking about just my Wi-Fi is going to be incredibly great, and but quantum computing, is now leveraging the fact that you could have two states to these things at the same time, and leverage that in a way to have it compute quicker.
Correct.
And you know what quantum entanglement is. Now you're starting to get two particles that could be at a distance and have them be both.
Yeah, no, 5G is supposed to be 1,000 times faster
I
than
think
4G.
I lost you.
That's no, I'm here. You see me? Okay.
We back?
Yeah, I'm here. I haven't left.
What happened?
It's Skype. It's Skype. It's goofy. Yeah. We're good though. We're good.
All right. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. I think that the quantum entanglement and the quantum computing and all that stuff is exciting ways of doing business that will discover a lot down the road. Artificial intelligence is something else we're getting into in the DoD, and a lot of others are as well. And so these are new technologies that are going to be fabulous for everybody.
Yeah, and in artificial intelligence, I mean, how far do you think we are when it comes to that? Because I mean, that's we've seen the movies, we know the stories of what could happen. Everybody's seen The Matrix. At this point, we've seen Terminator. We know what the bad side of AI is. But now, we're going through this virus, and if we had a lot of stuff that is built artificially, we could have probably handled this a whole lot better. So there is some kind of benefit to society to have things run with AI. Where you don't need to have so many people in one room, working on some stuff. But we kind of been going in that direction where computers, machines are going to start taking over more and more and more as society progresses. But it is scary that one day a machine might say, "But wait a second, humans are the cause of the problem."
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting little ethical kind of concern. There's a lot of ethics and a lot of different things, but I mean, from the standpoint of even if you think about the virus and whether it was built in labs and stuff like that, and all that rumor to that effect, there's a lot of ethical kinds of concerns around technology and what does it do? I mean, who would have thought that, putting in Facebook, that it would have gone to the point that it did, where you're now conversing with people around the planet, and there's inherently good and there's inherently bad in that. I mean, and so we see both sides of the coin because people will use it for their own either nefarious purposes or for good purposes. So I think that ultimately it goes back to the fact that humans are still in the equation. I think that we will always be in the equation. I think where AI is going to benefit us are the quicker computations, quicker our ability to be able to do things and get down into matters at a much higher rate of speed. Medicines will grow quicker, or we'll be able to come through with things. We'll be able to understand weather better. We'll be able to understand the patterns of that. What's the likelihood of a solar prominence hitting us? I mean, they'll be able to help us predict those things. And so those are the things that we want to be able to have. And I think that that somebody will build in the protections to keep them from taking over the human race. But we, as you and I know, a lot of our understanding of what reality is based upon whatever Hollywood wants to portray it. And, and so a lot of us were watching those, alien shows back in the 50s and stuff like that. And we were looking at Mothra and all that other stuff like that, and Godzilla's and fighting the UFOs and that type stuff. And then we have Independence Day. Well, they're all going to blow us up, and stuff like that. Yeah. So we've been, our reference points for those types of things are for movies, when in reality is much different. And a lot of people think that a lot of people think that the DOD or the government does spying in the way, and all these control systems around here are all watching us at all different times, and we can have the intelligence to be able to track them like they do in the spy movies. And that's not true. I mean, yeah, certain amounts of it are, that we got cameras and surveillance cameras, but it's not like that there's a central headquarters and they're all watching all these things. And in an instant, I can get on my phone and I can turn it on and change everything. And
the amount of manpower.
Yeah.
The amount of manpower you would need to do something. I mean, first of all, maybe that's why they're busting so many illegals from other countries, because maybe they're doing the job. I don't know, because I've worked at call centers before, and I'll tell you, and I worked trying to sell retail stuff like satellite channels like Showtime and things like that. And I'll tell you, just working in those call centers, they don't attract the brightest and the best, folks. Just the guys who could sell and are the best at, talking on the phone. And I'll tell you what, to pull something on this massive scale, we're talking about, millions and millions of people that are being surveillanced, supposedly, you would need millions and millions of people, literally. So it's like we're all spying on each other, right?
Right.
Maybe that's why they want us to become like a snitching society where we snitch on each other. Maybe that's the big secret, and that's what they're going with. I don't know, but I've always laughed at the thought that, there's a group of people that are monitoring everything.
Yeah.
They must get no sleep. This group of people.
Right.
Or it must be in the hundreds of millions. How does that work?
Angel, I'm serious that people, who have no thinking skills, no critical thinking skills, accept that as being real. Yeah. And and the government's watching them at all times. And it's just amazing to me that they actually think that way, but it's all based on our perceptions from Hollywood. And I tell you, I don't know. It's just,
it's ridiculous,
crazy. It's crazy.
But again, it's our own conspiratorial minds. We're all kind of, and we've been, like you said, since the 50s in the movies, we've all kind of grown conditioned to this kind of crazy mentality where everybody now is spooked at everything. Everybody is conditioned to, hate the government. Everybody's conditioned to think their big brother's out to get you. But when something happens, like an outbreak, who's the one we look at to help us out through all the hard times? The government.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so it's you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. In the context of working in the government and stuff like that. I look at it back at this point when I was age 13. I got started in this, and I was very naive at the time, and I did this 8th grade science report on UFOs. That's what started me in the whole thing. And I remember getting in front of the science teacher, and I said, surely if there was anything to this, the Air Force would be willing to tell us. That's how naive I was, right? I was believing that the Air Force would come up and be honest and say, well, yeah, they didn't. So that's what I said back then. Well, now, over all these years, I've worked in, corporate offices and stuff like that. And then I now ended up working as a defense contractor, working in the Army Materiel Command, and done that for 25 years. I have a whole different perspective. Number one, I've gotten older and a little bit more mature about it. And I realized that there's no way that the government really even knows what's going on within itself. It's ludicrous to think that a spokesperson would know what's happening down here in Alabama in my cube, where I reside. In fact, the people in the next row over from me don't know what I'm doing in my cube. So it's ridiculous. And so for them to come out and say, well, that we didn't know about this project, well, that's probably pretty accurate. Number two, they've spent a lot of time back-threading on everything that they've said, because they've learned now that there was a program, and they've learned about these videos, and now they had to go back and come out and be a little bit more honest than what they were. And so for me, it's a situation where I laugh at the notion that anybody thinks that a DOD spokesperson can immediately understand and know what all the things are that are going on in the DOD, which is around the world. by the way. I mean,
Yeah. My God, can you imagine if somebody like, say, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became like speaker or became president, and she was aware of some of the bigger secrets in the government, how dangerous that itself would be?
that could be anybody's dangerous. Yeah, I mean, not even just her. I mean, you could probably go on and name any politician, and I would probably jump and say that I'm a little bit concerned at how they deal with it. But I mean, and then goes back to the point like you just got through saying is like well, who does anybody trust anymore? I mean, do you trust the government? Do you trust the media? Do you trust another country? Who do you trust? I don't know. And so, you talked about wanting to have disclosure at the end of the year. Well, who would be the ones that release this, and do you trust anything that they say? And so there's a legitimate concern. Would the Pope be the better person to announce this? I mean, does anybody believe and trust the Pope? I mean, I don't know. I mean, where can I go for the perfect trust people that would help us to get the announcement out? And that's the tough part.
That's another tough one. The Vatican, they've known to cover things up over the last couple centuries.
They've got a
dirty stuff.
Masters at that. Yeah. By the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust anything that comes out of the Vatican at this point, or the Pope, or and look, I'm all for believing in God. By all means, everybody has the right to believe whatever God they believe in. I don't look down at anybody for their religious beliefs, by all means. I have a hard time believing in institutions that sweep pedophilia under the rug for, hundreds of years. And, that's troubling to me. So, yeah, I wouldn't trust the Pope. I honestly don't trust the media, because the media, we catch them in lies all the time on little things. Imagine something this big. Now, I will say that what we'll get is what we're kind of getting now, which is what I've said all along. We're going to get soft disclosure. I don't think the government's ever going to, if they do know, if there's people that know what's going on, I think it's going to take a long time before a lot of the information rolls out that they might have had, secretly hidden away when some of these individuals have passed on. They might still be alive and involved in some of the secrecy. And over time, we're going to get slow driplets of disclosure, like the Pentagon footage, different things like that, where the government opens up more and more and more to this realization. And what it's going to end up happening is we're going to have somebody like SETI or NASA say, we found microbes on Mars. Or we found a bug that lives on Mars, a little tiny insect or something that could live out there. I mean, we just have been bombarded in the media with little insects and little microbes that can live in space, the vacuum of space, and they can actually survive. So, we're being conditioned to think, hey, just because it's not Earth doesn't mean that there couldn't be life elsewhere that could survive on atmospheres much different from ours. We understand that now. And as science picks up and as the slow disclosure happens, I think that's what's going to start happening more and more. And more footage, like the one that just came out with the 3 UFOs in 2017, that now we're finally getting the Pentagon to admit that they're real. I think that's going to start happening more and more. And by the end of the year, I think we're going to have a good amount of footage that's going to be released. I do think that in the next few months, I think more stuff is going to start to come out. And I think NASA might be the one that actually announces that they found microbes that are currently living on the red planet Mars or something like that. I think that's how you start the road to disclosure. I don't ever see the president just coming out saying, yeah, Roswell were a bunch of aliens, and we've been in contact with aliens this whole time, and my good buddy, he's actually from Alpha Centauri. I just don't want to tell anybody because he's a little weird looking. You're not going to ever get that. It's just not going to happen. No. Even if it was the case, it's just not going to happen. And I don't think that's the case either. I don't think Trump or any president has actually shaken hands with a little gray. At least I really truly believe that. Like you see the tabloids every few years when there's a president. Oh, so and so meets a gray. And you see them shaking hands. That's Photoshop, folks. That's not real. And Photoshop's been around for a long time. And people that know how to manipulate footage and doctor images are experts at that. So it's amazing, but we're in that cusp right now, where we're advancing so much that soon we're going to go from a Type 0 civilization to maybe a Type 1, like Michio Kaku has calculated over the years. And that transition is a very dangerous one because we could either accept the technologies, which include, again, AI, 5G, quantum computing, all this exotic stuff that is exotic to us, but it's going to be common nature in 50 years to everybody, and more advancements that are going to come, including the disclosure that's going to happen. Unless we are trained to, understand that these things are real, we're never going to make that leap from 0 to 1. We're going to be stuck and maybe blow ourselves up. And that's what we want to avoid more than anything else, the destruction of the planet. I'd love to be able to stay alive another 50 years and see, what we're doing in 50 years from now. See the technologies that are available. It'd be incredible.
I think that for me, one of the things that I'm most encouraged about right now is that there's a little bit of encouragement at the same time discouragement. There's an attack on science that I don't care for.
Yep.
As you very well see, that the whole thing about whether it's climate science or any kind of science, it's not being supported by the current administration. That's a sad thing for me. Number two, I think that you're also seeing there's a lot of science and technology. We see students from other countries that come over and basically attend and get high marks and go on with sciences. And a lot of our current, kids in the United States and stuff like that are not making the grade comparison. I've got grandchildren who came over here they live in Spain. They went to Spanish schools, and they had a far better education over there than we did here. And when they came over here, they've gone into UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, into bioengineering and stuff like that. And I had a chance to go down and see the honor students at University of Alabama and gave them a UFO lecture. To me, it was like one of those things where it was very clear that a lot of these are foreign students that are in the honors colleges and stuff like that. So that's kind of sad. I mean, so if we're not, hopefully we're going to promote science and math and everything else, which is what the STEM program's about. But ultimately, it's about getting us to be smart and keeping up with what other countries are doing. And as you very well know, other countries are doing a lot better. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see where we are with science down the road. But I'm very sad about how we're still lacking in a lot of areas around that. And the fact that we are dismissing science is... but I am very encouraged because I think that the 3 videos in the Pentagon release is suddenly spurring us to get all these scientists that are coming into our organization. And they're willing to talk about the UAP now. And we've got just within the last day or so, we had a student doing physics work I think it was at Carnegie Mellon who wrote us. And wants to now get involved in this thing. So we're even seeing some science students that are now wanting to engage it because there's credible evidence now, and the admission by the Pentagon is helping. Mm-hmm. And so that's all good stuff.
Yeah, just the fact that the Pentagon admits to this being authentic footage, I think it's opening a lot of doors. You're absolutely right. And a lot of folks are taking it seriously, not just the Neil deGrasse Tyson of the world or Elon Musk's or the most famous people, but within the scientific community, more and more are starting to look at this as a real phenomenon, which, if it's, again, extraterrestrial, could, mean a whole lot of things, which is funny because, we've had reports in the past where they said that the number one group of people that would be affected negatively, mentally wise, would be scientists. because they'll feel inferior to, exotic technologies from elsewhere, somewhere else. Which to me, I always laugh at because I would think as a scientist, and I'm an amateur at it at best because I love science, but I understand science. And just as somebody who understands how science works, I would be super excited to know that this exists. And I would want to dig into like the technologies available and see exactly where it could lead us and how it could, make this world a better place. Because we are talking about free energy, of the ability to travel from one point to another point with limited amount of fuel used to no fuel or exotic fuel that doesn't hurt the environment. There's so many things that are going to be beneficial to our everyday lives as human beings, which if we do positive things to take advantage of them, could be very, very helpful. So I would think science and scientists would be ecstatic at this kind of thing. But Operation Paperclip and all these other things, they were like, oh no, scientists, they'll go crazy. They'll completely lose it if this ever came out. It never computed with me to be a fact at all. I mean, you would agree with that, right? I mean,
yeah, I think that again, science just went through it's almost like the dark ages with this UFO subject. Yeah. Initially, they were willing to do papers, and it was receptive. Then it went through the period of time where it was a big joke and don't do anything on UFOs, and so right now there's a lot of journals that scientists want to write papers, but the journals won't accept them because it's on the subject of UFO.
Yeah.
So where do scientists go to be able to do their papers and write their research work and share it and collaborate? So guess what? What we're doing in SCU is we're creating our own journal, and we're doing our peer review process to be able to look at documents so that we can now have a place where we can put those UFO related documents and things like that by scientists. So now scientists want to get engaged and to share that and to have these things put into a respectable journal. And so, I mean, until that changes that stigma with the whole UFO subject, and the stigma is that it's just a big joke and there's nothing to it, and all the pushback you've had, it's just the whole thing is just ridiculous. Why do we want to get it? When that stigma changes, and regardless of what term you want to use, whether it's UFO or UAP, it's the same thing. But the fact that there's again there's credibility that's been reestablished by the fact that the DoD says that they're now going to look into it, and the Navy's going to take reports again. I think that that's ultimately going to now open up scientific channels that we haven't had before. And we'll start to get that happening. And so we're encouraging academia and everybody we can get that's professors and colleges and other stuff like that to come together to join us on that kind of thing. And it's very exciting.
Not only that, one major benefit from all this openness that's coming out recently about the subject is it's no longer the giggle factor attached to it. Nobody's laughing at it anymore. Now it's being taken seriously, even on the mainstream media, which that's been one of the things we've been facing in this community for a very long time, is that stigma that, it's just stuff that people are imagining, and they laugh at it. I've seen reports where the reporters are literally laughing as they're talking about an individual who's claiming to have been abducted and who've gone through the horrible things. I saw when Travis Walton talked about it, and there was a report on TV years ago. I remember the reporter giggling as they're talking about a man who claims to have been abducted, has missing time. It's on the record. People were looking for him, including government officials were out looking for him. He's been very honest and open about what happened. Passed lie detector tests, but yet when the media was talking about it, they treated it as a joke.
Yep.
And we're finally overcoming that nonsense, which, and it's all thanks to people like you, by the way. And what you do and what you've been doing for many years, and the Stanton Friedmans of the world, Steve Bassett's of the world, all the individuals who also have done their parts. You folks have been on the front line, boots on the ground, right? You've been on the front line of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, well, we have been, and it's been a long journey for me personally. I mean, I've gone through a lot, but and you've gone through tough times with it, and you take all the humor that everybody wants to throw at you. I've got so many people that make fun of the fact that I do this and stuff like that. But I've just hung in there. I mean, I don't really care what they think about it. I just basically say, well, I'm going to study this regardless because I really believe that there's something to it, and there is.
Yeah.
And I've investigated, and I've done the investigations of about 1,000 cases or something like that. I've been out there climbing in the fields and going into and talking with witnesses. I've been and doing all that homework that has to investigate a case, and come up with a logical conclusion as to what it is. So I've done that hard work, and I think that right now it's like me trying to make sense out of this 56 years that I've had with this subject, and where do you take it? And personally, I don't think that we've done the right thing with scientific study on this 56 years that I've been involved. Secondly, I don't think that we've investigated things the way we need to investigate. Thirdly, I think that we haven't really applied the technologies of today effectively to be able to go out and to do the study that we would like to have and get the data. And then fourthly, when we do get data, it's not necessarily accurately passed around to be able to have it looked at, peer-reviewed, and studied. I don't know if you're watching the Skinwalker show that's on a History Channel right now or not, but Travis Taylor, who is on that show and stuff like that, is on episode 4. They had saw a UFO, and they had all these video cameras that were out observing it. Well, I went to Travis, who happens to live down here in Huntsville with me, and I said, Travis, who's got the videos? Mm-hmm. We ought to have that analyzed, and somebody. That's how you investigate that kind of things. And basically, he said, well, it's owned by the film camera crew or something like that. Well, I said, are you telling me you're not collecting that data and studying it like you're wanting to do all this quasi science on the show and send up rockets and do all this other? You're not doing that kind of like investigation of the videos? I mean, wait a minute. Well, before you call something a really a UFO by Hynek's experience, you actually have it investigated first, and the results of that tells you whether it's an IFO, identified flying object, or it's a UFO. Okay?
Right.
And so on the show you're saying, well, it's a UFO, folks. It's a UFO. Well, a lot of UFOs turn out to be identified flying objects.
Yeah.
And so and again, you're doing a show about the Skinwalker Ranch, and it's very interesting, and it looks like you're collecting a lot of like stuff, but are you having it peer reviewed and shared? Is anybody else going to do that kind of like scientific method stuff? No. Mm-hmm. This is for entertainment.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that. I had recently Paul Dale Roberts on the show, who's been out to the Skinwalker Ranch, and he said he's seen orbs and things that he can't identify. Unfortunately, there's no cameras around when a lot of people see things, and he's a paranormal researcher. And I was like, shame on you, Paul. You should have your cameras out if you're going to be investigating some of this stuff, and then talking about it on radio. Or on video or on a TV show. You should have the footage, and you're absolutely right. If you don't have the science behind it to look at it and scrutinize what it is that these folks are recording, then it's like Ancient Aliens and Giorgio Tuculu's Everything's an Alien.
Well,
right?
exactly. Yeah. Ancient theorists suspect that this is what. It was aliens, It was aliens. Everything was aliens, And
we can never take any credit for our own, ingenuity as human beings. We couldn't have created the pyramids, of course not. They have to be aliens. And here's my thing: it could have been settlers on Earth that lived here before the humans as we know it, because the planet's been here for 4 billion years. Doesn't mean we're the end of the food chain, guys. There could have been another race much smarter that kind of looked like us, that maybe died out 1 billion years ago. and they were the creators of the pyramids. We don't know that.
Right. Right. Well, there's a lot of mysteries until you have science or something like that focusing on it, they're going to remain mysteries, and we don't really understand them. And again, it goes back to, to me, I'm encouraged by the fact that the technology has improved to the point where you can put them, today you can have an infrared camera. Back when I was doing this, we didn't have infrared cameras when I got started. We were lucky to have a simple, brownie kind of like.
You had a ruler and a pencil to do your math back then.
Exactly. I literally, I can on my phone, I can do all kinds of incredible investigations right now, but I didn't have. And so I'm encouraged by the fact that we've got the newer technologies out to allow the ground. The very base of the United States to be able to have these things and to do these kinds of our own studies, if you would, and collect our own data at an affordable cost. And so it's very, very exciting.
Can you imagine if everybody who was involved in the Phoenix Lights had smartphones at that moment and were able to point them?
Yeah.
That's it. That would have proved that it happened 100%.
Right, and you would have had the triangulation. You could have positioned it in the sky. You would have known the altitude of it, and you could have looked at all that kind of wonderful data. And so you're absolutely right. In fact, they're looking at making a lot of applications now to be able to utilize the fact that your phone gives you the GPS location, and you can take a photo and get an incredible photo, and have somebody else take another one from a different spot, and now you can do all that triangulation to be able to come up with where its altitude is and everything else. But my cell phone can do thermal now. I've got the little Seek attachment that I can attach to it and do thermal imaging. And I've got little devices I can plug into the phone, and it'll tell me the exact temperature and humidity and everything else. And so it's really remarkable today, Angel. It's just really incredible.
And remember, you could also tell the satellites, where they're at, so you don't mistake that for a UFO, which a lot of folks over the years, since space is cluttered with our own satellites, when they're looking up, and I know this as a sky watcher myself, sometimes you can mistake a satellite for an object that looks exotic or UFO related. And when you look at the data and you see where these satellites are positioned, you're like, oh, that's what I saw. And it becomes clearer and clearer that, a lot of reports might be weird extraterrestrial stuff, but yet some of those reports can be explained away as satellites, as natural phenomenon. And that's the beauty of having science behind it, and that's how you explain away the nonsense and keep the real evidence, and then move forward from that point. It's beautiful. Science is a beautiful thing.
Give you an example of, I've actually done cases on my cell phone. And so that you were the witness, and you're telling me you're standing out by your tree and you're taking a look and you're looking in the western sky. Okay, so I get on my phone. I've got your location down. I'm now looking at Google Earth, and I'm able to see from Google Earth the tree that you're talking about, that you're standing near. And I said, oh, okay, so you're looking over there. I can see the tree you're talking about. Okay, now where are these lights at? They're in the west. Okay, they're at west, and how many degrees above the horizon are they? Okay, well, they say it's about 30 degrees above the horizon. I now switch over and go to my aircraft app that I've got, Air Traffic 24. And now I'm looking and saying, are there any aircraft in that specific area? I'm seeing that there's a flight that's out there. I say, okay, now do you see that aircraft that's out there? And they say, well, no, I don't see that in any kind of aircraft. I just see the object. Well, wait a minute, there's an aircraft right there. You can get where I'm going. I'm saying that literally I'm sitting here switching between that, and I can see satellites directly above them. I can see the entire, you can use my planetarium kind of like thing, if you would, and see the entire sky above them. I've got the satellites that I can look directly above. I got the aircraft directly above, and I can do this on my phone.
Amazing.
It is.
Yeah. It's
You know,
amazing. It's amazing though
you
how
know,
far we've gone. Yeah.
I
Now,
go back.
again, just imagine how far we're going to have in the next 10 years with just
Yeah,
smartphones.
yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah, it's really remarkable. So yeah, I mean, I think back to when I was doing this like 56 years ago, and I didn't have one of these things, and I'm out there, like you say, with a pencil and paper, and I've got a star chart, maybe it's that I can pull out, but other than that, I didn't. You know, it took me a while to do an investigation because ultimately I had to go and figure that all out. Go to a library, you know, to try to come up with something.
Yeah.
You know? But it's
Now these are your tips.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. People are like, libraries. What are those things?
Yeah, exactly. What's a
That's
library?
what Google, before Google existed. That's what Google was.
Yeah,
It was the
exactly.
library. You go there, and you'd spend hours and hours trying to find a book, and then you sit there for hours and hours and read the book.
Right,
And
right.
a book is, for those who don't know, the book is a thing that has pages. You read from left to right, and you turn the pages as you're going along, and you keep reading. That's what a book is. People, they have no idea anymore. It's crazy, Rich, how science has changed and warped the minds of individuals. I tell people I read at least 2 or 3 books a month, and they're like, "Are you insane?" I'm like,
Right.
why? Reading is fundamental. Wouldn't that become a bad word? You know? But that's technology. You know, the kids today have it so much easier than they had it even when I was a young kid. And I'm only in my 40s. So, you know, we had, things like calculator watches when I was a kid. You know, we had a
Right.
little bit more technology than now, or than back then, I should say, further back. But now it's insane. The things that are happening. Rich, once again, when is your show going to air? I want you to go again and go over all the details on it. We're almost out of time here, and
All right.
I want to make sure that I want to get the audience to listen in. There's a couple of days from now, the big event coming up. Where can they listen to this thing? Where can they be active? Could they call in and be participants? Give out all the details, please.
Okay. Well, keep the basically our website, and it will tell you a lot about those details. We have it explorescu.org. And it'll have the details in terms of the presentations and when they'll be on and that type of stuff. But ultimately, May 6th is when it's going to happen. I can't remember the exact time, and of course, you got people from all around the planet, and they'd have to look it up. But the best thing I do is just go to the website, and then they can look it up and see what time it'll be on. The first one will be with Robert Powell. Robert's going to talk about the Ubatuba metal that was found and the analysis that was done on that. And so we're very excited about that. He was going to do a presentation on it at the conference. So that's, and we're going to have them like once a month or something like that, basically that they'll be on. Alejandro Rojas is going to be on hosting and helping, and Martin Willis is going to also be on helping us to put this thing together. But we'll have basically our own little podcast, if you would, that we'll have on a monthly basis.
That's awesome.
And then we'll have our conference again next year. It'll probably be in the June time frame. Again, we'll try for it, and hopefully COVID-19 doesn't continue to make its ugly appearance or something like that. But we'll have these presenters come in and do their full presentations at the time here, and it's here in Huntsville, Alabama. That's pretty much it. You can get a hold of us or me through the contact page on our website as well. We do have a YouTube channel. We also have a Twitter account, and we've also got a Facebook site that we keep up. So if you look for SCU, you can keep track of us. And we're teaming with a lot of other organizations out there now that are doing science and stuff like that. So we're very excited about the partnering kind of things we got going on with others that are doing technology-based stuff. So it's all good.
Very, very cool. I mean, I look forward to the next couple of days and checking that out. And Alejandro is Man, he's a great, great guy, and if he's helping you guys out, I
Yes.
know this is tremendously well backed up because he's one of the classiest individuals I've ever met in this craziness that we call ufology.
Yeah.
He yourself, I mean, you gentlemen are just phenomenal human beings, and I love Alejandro. He's one of the first guys that got me involved in doing podcasts about aliens. He was like, "Dude, you should do this." Like, you know a whole lot about it. Might as well talk about it. And I was like, if that's coming from you, then I should take your advice because back then he was doing UFO think tank, and look how far he's come. From then to
Yeah.
now.
I
And
know.
again, very, very, very good guy. I love Alejandro Rojas. He's
Yep.
a gentleman and a scholar.
Yes.
He truly is.
He's a pleasure to work with, and he's part of SEU too, by the way.
There you go.
So I mean, we got great people on board. We're very happy to have all these. Dr. Kevin Knuth just did something the other day where he had a Zoom with people like Jacques Vallée, and you had a whole bunch of other people that were on that phone call, and we watched his presentation, and that was just 2 days ago, I believe. And
Wow.
it was incredible, the intellect that was on that Zoom podcast and what he presented. In fact, that'll probably be something that you'd be able to look up here soon. I can send it to you, and you could share it maybe on the radio or something.
Please send my way. I'd love to take a look at that. Heck yeah. That'd be great. Rich, love having you on, man. Love the bow tie. Hopefully next year we're corona free and I get to go to one of the actual events and I'll be wearing a bow tie. I'll be a little bit of pleasure. I'll be able to support one.
Fabulous! I'd love to see you with it. You'd look great.
Hey, it's they say it's easy to get big, but it's hard to get small. It's very true. Especially when you're taught as you're little, think big, and I'm like, no, hold on, I'm trying to think small. Now. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. You're again a lovely man, gentleman, and I hugged you in 2016, and hopefully we're around next year so I can give you another big hug when I meet you again in person. You're a great guy.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angel. I appreciate it very much. Great to be on with you.
Thank you, sir, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay. Out here.
God bless.
Bye-bye.